Suzanne, I just love our conversations, and you drop so much wisdom when we're talking. I actually decided I couldn't keep all the wisdom to myself, and so I asked you if you would be willing to record a few of these conversations, and so therefore, after you said yes, I thought, okay, let's have a fireside chat, and we'll call this Wisdom and Wellness, and so therefore, here we have Wisdom and Wellness. And this is I'm Catherine, and this is my longtime friend and um, longtime family therapist, now retired, and feline philosopher,
Yeah.
Dr. Suzanne Kilkus, and I've asked her to just share a couple of our conversations because your wisdom is just too good to be not shared with my friends and the world. So welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you, Catherine. And we need to be by the fireside today because it's chilly outside. I mean, it's beyond chilly. It is freezing. Absolutely. So
Yes,
it's
super.
really good to be next to the fireside here with you. And you know how much I love our conversations
Oh my gosh.
and how much I love you. So this is
Wow.
perfect.
Right
This,
back at you. Yes, this is so fun. So today, Suzanne, I thought maybe we would just start with a real basic thing, like how the mind and body is connected and how what we have, what we think about sort of manifests in our bodies, and how our mental state can often become our physical state. And
mm,
so,
mm, mm.
maybe you could just start with, how does a thought end up becoming, a knee issue or a back issue
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, it's not simple, Catherine. And I shy away from using the term connected, body and mind are connected. I think they're really one because the mind is a manifestation of the body is a manifestation of the mind. And what's going on in our body will produce a whole variety of thoughts. And the kind of thoughts that we're engaging in are going to have an effect on our body. And here's a real simple example. So I hear a loud sound in the night, wakes me up. Oh, I'm startled.
Right.
What's the first thing that comes to mind? Something
Scary.
bad is happening, right?
Right.
Something bad is happening. Instant fear, right? Instant fear. Something bad's happening. And what happens in our body? Our breath catches up, right? Our shoulders rise up. Our stomach gets tight because what we're doing, what's just automatically happened is the fight, flight, freeze, faint process of the body because we've gone into protection and into survival.
Mhm.
So if we're in this state of fear and we have all this stuff going on, and our body is all ready to protect ourselves, and because it's based in I've got to survive this, and we find out that our dear little kitty has knocked something off of the kitchen counter, and he wasn't supposed to be in the kitchen, you know. So we go downstairs and we find that out. We go, oh, buddy, what did you do? Okay, God picked this up. It wasn't anything. But the deal is when we're in the fight and flight pattern of the body, our adrenals have put out a big shot of adrenaline and a big shot of stress hormone, cortisols. And depending on the level of reaction and the level of danger that we felt, that's going to take a while to leave our body, to dissipate. It dissipates through our breathing, so we can really help ourselves by doing some deep breathing. It dissipates through sweat. If we're sweating, it dissipates through urination and feces. Which may not be readily available, but we can go right to our breath and we can sit down maybe or lie back down and do some nice breathing exercises. But it'll still take about 10 minutes or so, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how ramped up we got.
Right.
Okay, so that's a pretty prime example of
Yeah.
things that happen.
I've had a adrenaline hangover
Mm-hmm.
like the next day when I've been really worked out.
Oh, yes. Oh, I know that one. Absolutely.
I
Mhm.
feel like there was a time when I was so provoked and I was in my thoughts and I just became, just so worked up. And I know that we can work ourselves up, but
Mhm.
it was like one thought was creating the next thought. And then I was in a spiral of just
Mhm.
negativity. And,
Yeah.
then the next day I was so exhausted from
Mhm.
all of that energy. It was
Mhm.
overwhelming. I mean, I didn't feel like I could just sort of like I knew what was going on in some ways, but I wasn't able to sort of like shift into
Yeah.
like, okay, I need to get out of this adrenaline based.
Yeah.
I mean, the kitty dropping something off the counter in the middle of the night is something you can sort of go, oh, I see that, and then go to the next thing. But for the
Yes.
deeply emotional stuff,
Mhm. Mhm. Well, yeah, that's the thing to consider. If we're in a continual state of something bad is happening, we're going to keep a continual stream of the stress hormones going in our body. And we become pretty sensitive to anything startling us.
mhm, mhm,
And when that happens, I think adrenaline can be toxic. It's really helpful because it gets us up and going and all of that. But
right.
if we've had too big a shot for too long a time, or we've had too much running through our body, the stress hormones running through our body, it becomes toxic for us. And yeah, it really affects our mood, affects our sense of well being, affects our body state. Fatigue is one of them. That's very true.
Well, okay, so adrenaline comes from our kidneys or our adrenal glands,
Our
basically.
adrenal glands would sit, and they're just nickel-sized little organs
So,
that
yeah,
sit on the top of our kidneys. Yes,
and they're meant to put out adrenaline,
they are meant to put out adrenaline. We need adrenaline.
right? But what happens
Absolutely.
when we are in that place and we are taxing those little organs for that continual shot of
Yeah.
adrenaline? And then that's not even to speak about like what happens when you get sort of addicted to being in that adrenaline
Mhm.
state. I mean,
Right.
that's another podcast, but I mean,
Yeah,
it really has an effect on you physically then, right?
it does. And it can have pretty pronounced effects over time. So we need to really develop some self-care with how to reduce the adrenaline effect of adrenaline flow in our body and to regulate that our hormonal system so that we don't have a continual flow of adrenaline of the stress hormones, but rather they're activated when we need them. Like we need them to get up in the morning. We need them to go out during the day. We need them, if we have an exercise program, we need some adrenaline to go out there and do our exercise and weight work and all of that. To a certain point, if we overwork it, it's going to be a problem. But doing some normal sorts of things, activities, can really help us regulate our system. Learning a good breathing practice, um, breathing in deep, breathing out long and slow, so that we reduce the number of breaths per minute to 8,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
maybe between 8 and 12. But beyond 12, we're getting into a stress response.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That varies. Some people say beyond 18, but I think that's way too high.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I was on an airplane once sitting next to a young man who was on the window seat and he was leaning on the window, sleeping. But I watched his upper chest breathe in and out. He was breathing. So I thought, this is an experiment. I'm not staring, but he was sleeping. I thought, I'm just going to count and see how often he's breathing. He was breathing over 25 times a minute
In a resting state?
in a resting state. Yeah. And this is what happens to people. I mean, I didn't disturb him anything like that. But this is what happens to us even when we're resting, even when we're asleep, we can be in a pattern of breathing that really does not support true rest.
Wow.
And so if we do some very simple basic practice of deep inhale and long and slow exhale, it takes a bit to learn how to do this. When I learned how to do this 40 years ago, 30 years ago, it took me a good 6 weeks because I had a pattern of only breathing when I absolutely had to.
Well,
Not good. Not
no,
good.
we'll have to do a segment on breathing, and how, because I've seen you teach, well, you've taught me and you've taught others how to breathe, and it's really profound. I mean, to
It is
get
because it
that.
takes care of our nervous system. It regulates our nervous system. It regulates every cell in our body. It reduces our heart rate. It calms our mind. It brings peace into our body. I mean, it's pretty profound. And, it doesn't cost anything. It's
Right,
not a pharmaceutical that we have to have prescribed to us.
right.
Yeah.
So, and the breath work is really what I guess you can sort of come to say is more being more mindful.
Hmm.
That really takes you back. I mean, because when you're focusing on your breathing, when I'm focusing on my breathing, I don't, I don't really have all sorts of, thoughts of that are, yes, some things will come in, but when I go back to my breath, it feels like that's when all of it sort of melts away.
Right. Right.
I don't know that I'm a great breather because I often find myself breathing in my, top third of my lungs, but
Yeah.
I feel like when I do get mindful or get focused on my breath and I do my belly breathing, it feels so grounding, Suzanne.
Well, you're making a good point. This is physiological. It's not just a good idea. When I notice that I'm breathing only in the top third of my lungs, most people don't know that most of the blood flow, where the oxygen that we're taking in goes into our body, is in the lower third of the lungs. So if we're only breathing in the top third of our lungs, that's why, we end up breathing fast.
Yeah,
We're having to get more oxygen through our body. So when we can practice and with some regularity, or as you're saying, when I just notice it and I can say, okay, take in a deep breath, and it might take 3, 4, 5 breaths to get it a little deeper, but the image is send it down to your pelvis so that your lungs fully expand. I mean, they don't expand down to your pelvis, but that's just an image to use, okay? So your lungs fully expand, and then take charge of your exhale, and like you're blowing out a candle. So you extend your exhale out long and slow. That's actually the practice that will trigger your relaxation branch of your nervous system, the parasympathetic branch.
Mhm.
That exhale will do that. If we don't exhale long and slow, we stay in the activated branch of the nervous system, the sympathetic.
Mhm.
We need both branches of the nervous system to, get on with life.
Yeah, yeah.
But if we don't have a way to access our parasympathetic when we're needing it, like to calm ourselves down,
Mhm.
then we're going to get into trouble where we can't relax, we're not sleeping well,
Yeah.
we're just breathing so fast that it's taking a lot more effort to get oxygen into our whole system.
So is breathing really the only way to get access to that, calming, or is there other ways that you?
No, good question. No, there's just some very simple movement practices like rolling your shoulders back,
Oh,
um, grounding your feet. If you put your feet flat on the floor, pressing your feet into the ground meaning the floor, so you really feel your body grounded, with gravity. We're letting gravity do the work for us. And then when you're sitting on a chair, you let your sits bones be known. You say, okay, sits bones, I see you, I know you. And you might rock back and forth like that. And you just put your attention maybe on your tailbone, on your sacrum. You follow your spine up into its natural curves around the base of your spine, and then around your heart, and then up into the cervical spine. And you relax your shoulders, and you just let your arms hang gently down into your lap with your hands, palms resting in each other. And just simple movements like that will activate some easier breathing in your body.
Boy,
And
does it.
then if you want to do standing movements, you do, basically the same thing. You do some nice, gentle, mindful walking,
Mhm.
heel toe. Just, do walking around your house or your office, around your desk, that sort of thing. And, I like to dance sometimes. I just like to wiggle. I'm a cosmic jiggler. You
A
call it?
cosmic jiggler. I love that.
You just jiggle,
Yeah.
which activates, which in and of itself will reset your breath.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Suzanne, I think this has been a great start to our conversations, and I'm hoping that we can have more.
Mhm.
And boy, the time has just flown by. Once we get started, it just can just go like this. And
Mhm.
so I want to just be mindful of your time and thank you for having this conversation about especially breath work and how everything gets sort of stuck in our bodies. But we will be back with another topic very soon.
Okay, great.
Great. Thank you so
Right.
much.
You're welcome, Catherine. Thank you.